welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Stephen Einstein. Thank you all for joining me again tonight as we go through and we do today's daily reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This, of course, will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning that you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, because this will be the first time that I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with y'all. So, looking forward to it. We talked about some selfishness, some meditation, some things like that, and it's been a great month. I'm excited to see how much else we can bring into it. So let's go ahead and get started here with October 15th reading of James Allen's Daily Meditations. The spirit is strengthened and renewed by meditation upon spiritual things. A man must pass through 3 gateways of surrender. The first is the surrender of desire. The second is the surrender of opinion. The third is the surrender of self. Entering into meditation, he will commence to examine his own desires, tracing them out of his mind and following up their effects in his life and upon his character. He will quickly perceive that without the renunciation of desire, a man remains a slave, both to himself and to his surroundings and circumstances. Having discovered this, the first gate, that the surrender of desire, is entered. Passing through this gate, he adopts a process of self-discipline, which is the first step in the purification of the soul. The lamp of faith must be continually fed and assiduously trimmed. Oh, that is such a powerful reading. Man, that's good. Man, 3 gates of surrender. That's why they always say life is a continual practice of surrenders. I agree with that. All right, now I just looked up assiduously. With great care and perseverance. So the lamp of faith must be continually fed and with great care and perseverance trimmed. So that's interesting. Great care and attention to detail. So continuously monitored, grown, nurtured, things like that. So that's just incredible. I like this. I hope the other 2 gates are talked about in the next days. And so we continue to read about that. I don't know which book this is from. A lot of the ones recently, I don't know which book it's from, which is unfortunate. So I guess it's on my to-read list, the rest of them. So we'll get through them, book at a time. All right, let's go through this. There's a lot in this one. The spirit is strengthened and renewed by meditation upon spiritual things. I think this is important. He uses 2 words to describe what meditation does, right? It strengthens our spirit, strengthens it, clarifies, gives us more understanding, right? Helps reduce our ignorance to spiritual things and understandings, right? So that's the first, strengthens. Now the second, renewed, re-energizes us. It's invigorating. It's refreshing our spiritual nature. It can be tiring. Our spirit gets downtrodden, beaten down. We give of ourselves. Meditation renews that for us. Meditation is a rejuvenating force for our spirit. And that's been my personal experience with this. It really has been that by meditation upon spiritual things, like it says, my spirit is renewed. It's weird how it works. Part of you thinks it's logical to say yes, of course, but part of me also is just like, why does the contemplation of spiritual things actually revitalize me? Right? Because I'm technically expending more energy physically to get, I don't even know how much more energy spiritually. It's very interesting to me. But I believe it to be true. It's been my experience that it's true. So here we go. A man must pass through 3 gateways of surrender. 3 gateways. This is pretty cool. I like the way he has this set up. It's pretty well. I'm definitely interested to see his description and his understandings and of the other 2 gates as well, because I feel like I got to go through this line by line, but I'm gonna agree with his surrender of desire. So here we go. The first is the surrender of desire. The second is the surrender of opinion, and the third is the surrender of self. Which really, I mean, the third is probably the total surrender, right? Because desire is feeding our d- egos, it's feeding our feel good, it's feeding our validation, right? Then opinion is the self-assured ego, right? More different side of our ego, but still our own personal attachment to an opinion, our own personal attachment to our perspective, believing we're better than others potentially. Most times, yes. Then the third is the surrender of self. So our desires are part of self, our opinions are part of self. So when we outline these things and we understand them, it allows us to remove the attachments, I'm guessing, is how this is going to play out to this physical world, this material world, and allows us to surrender the self entirely to a spiritual way of living. But we'll see how the rest of this plays out in the coming days, I'm sure. But this first one is very incredibly important, especially for those of you in sobriety. So let's go into it. Entering into meditation, he will commence to examine his desires, tracing them out in his mind, and following up their effects in his life and upon his character. He will quickly perceive that without the renunciation of desire, a man remains a slave both to himself and to his surroundings and circumstances. So let's break this into 2 here. Entering into meditation. So that which is the aspiration to find truth, right? And then the concentration on it. Entering into meditation, he will commence to examine his desires. So it's saying we want the truth. What is this desire about? What do I want from this? He will commence to examine his desires, tracing them out in his mind. So following them back to their source, following back to what they serve, following back to old associations. Associations that might not even realize are being played into a desire, right? Could be physical cravings, things like that. What do these desires do for us? Find that out. Tracing them out in his mind and following up their effects in his life upon his character. What do we do in pursuit of our desires? Who do we step on? Who do we harm, including ourselves? How do we harm? Right? How do we deceive ourselves into saying it's a justified action to take, then paying the consequences later through conscious and punishment? So we have to look at our life and upon that effects these desires have. Excuse me, fuddled that up. The effects these desires have on our life and our character, right? What we practice, what we think about, what are the thoughts behind this? What are we trying to accomplish? There's always an accomplishment that we're trying to get to with these things. Distraction, relief, self-serving in all ways usually. And he will quickly perceive that without the renunciation of desire, a man remains a slave both to himself and to his surroundings and circumstances. So if you want to be free of these things, if you want to have a different life, to not keep doing the same things over and over and over again. You have to surrender these desires. You have to do something different. As much as we might not want to, that's what needs to happen. Or else we will constantly be a slave to our own desires, our surroundings, and circumstances, which is a miserable way to live. It means our whole life mentality and peace of mind is subjected to what the outer world wants to give us, where we find ourselves in the outer world. It takes all the power away when you don't do this, which is a humbling thought. Having discovered this, the first gate, that surrender of the desire, that of the surrender of desire, is entered. Passing through this gate, he adopts a process of self-discipline, which is the first step in the purification of the soul. Wow, there we go. When you have understood and are willing to sacrifice these desires, to surrender these desires, more so is the phrasing he used, you have entered into that first gate. You've entered into this process of self-purification, of enlightenment, of spiritual living, Christ-like behavior, righteousness. So many terms, so many phrases, so many perspectives, right? Passing through this gate, he adopts a process of self-discipline, which is the first step in the purification of the soul. It's kind of amazing when you think about it that way. Just understanding the impact your desires have on your life is the first step to this purification. It affects us so much, but it's the first thing that has to go. It's the first thing that we have to let go of to be able to grow spiritually in love and understanding. Passing through this gate, the surrender of desire. The first gateway of surrender. It's awesome. The lamp of faith must be continually fed and assiduously trimmed. It has to be nurtured, it has to be grown, it has to be given nutrients, it has to be fed properly. We do that through meditation. We do that through self-examination. We do that through the concentration of godlike aspiration. To focus on these truths, these virtues and principles. And it will grow quicker and beyond your wildest dreams. It just starts snowballing. It's incredible the speed that growth can pick up when you allow it to, when you're willing to do the work. It's incredible. So, all right. Well, that's going to end it for today. I really do hope we get to the other two gateways. I'm sure they will, but part of me's really looking forward to it. But I guess we'll wait and see just to make sure I don't read ahead. So, we'll be back again tomorrow to hopefully read about the second gateway of surrender of opinion. Excited to hear about it. So, that's all for now, guys. Until next time. Thanks.